Our team recently sat down with Chris Potestio, a former buyer for Texas-based grocer H-E-B Central Market. Now a consultant, Chris helps rising brands develop their go-to market strategy. How do buyers decide what they're looking for?
A lot of it is they're going to look to some of their associates that are on Instagram all the time, or something they see on the food channel that's a brand new product, or looking at other grocers or specialty regional chains and see what they're doing, because it might be a product that's only in the Northwest and I'm in the Southeast, but I can still get that product. It's just because it would be new and innovative for me, and they're very saturated on the West Coast. And there's a lot of regionality where there's a lot of great products. They just have not scaled nationally, and obviously that would be the clear next step for a rising brand. Retailers overall use very historical third-party data. It could be IRI, it could be Nielsen, it could be their industry publications as far as within the space that they're responsible for within the buyers. But now I think it's evolving to, there's so many other channels. There's social media that a lot of brands, especially rising brands, are turning to. It could be an organic Instagram marketing program. It could be Facebook. And they're gaining traction that way because it's much more affordable than some of the kind of historical marketing vehicles that were used by brands even 5-10 years ago. So when you put all those pieces together, it really opens up, how they're finding the right product.
Walk us through a traditional retail organization. Who should an emerging brand expect to meet?
As a rising brand, you're going to deal with a lot of different aspects of the organization. The gatekeeper will always be the buyer that's responsible kind of for that category, and will probably end up being their main contact. The buyer often has a small support team to help with a lot of the pieces and administrative parts that go with keeping up with the brand after the buyer, and the buyer takes your product in. There could be a marketing person that wants to talk to you about, this is a new campaign we're doing, and the buyer might be able to originally say, here's an idea we have, but then they're going to probably hand you off to maybe a marketing colleague, and because they want to talk about a new digital program or someone from the digital team, and about this is what we're doing on our Facebook page and how do we get this support. It has a lot to do with that support and experience that might happen in store. A lot of it's moving to digital now because of the amount of reaches and value from the digital standpoint. And then of course, depending on how you do as far as your distribution and your supply chain, if accounting ends up calling you from an invoice or an A&R standpoint, now you're dealing with someone in accounting. If you're selling into a distribution center, well, now you might have another side of supply chain. Again, all working with the buyer, still going to be your contact. And it's just important that you're as responsive to those people within the organization as you are the buyer. And often I've seen both, because they said, well, I'm just worried about what the buyer thinks, and as the main point of contact for the retailer, and then they end up kind of upsetting the apple cart throughout the organization internally on lack of response, delayed response, inaccurate information, and that comes back to the buyer, and the buyer will say, you know what, it's not worth the headache. Now, kind of the pie's on my face. I really don't want to deal with this. When there was a lot of similar products, maybe I'll just move to that because I know I can count on this other supplier, this other brand. Vice versa, they can come right back around and say, wow, this brand is amazing. They're so responsive, they're accurate, they're on the ball. Hopefully we do more business with them. And then they begin to lean more on as a brand and a partner, and then looking to do more together.
How does a retailer typically evaluate performance?
First and foremost, if you want to understand what your dashboard needs to be with a retailer to understand the health of your brand, you really need to understand how the retailer measures and is measured internally within the organization. It's to understand, number one, what is that retailer and buyer looking at? You don't want to wait for the buyer and retailer to come back and say, hey, we have 350 days of inventory on hand. What do you want to do about it? Because that's really the last call or email you want to get. You want to be able to go back to the retailer right away and look at it and say, hey, it seems that we're not moving all the product initially and we're having a hard time getting placements or shelf distribution for the new reset and the current space and planograms. Is it about the price point that the retailer's setting it at? Number two, are they set up where they're competitive on where that product really belongs from a suggested retail price? If you have all those kind of pieces of alignment, you can then look at, is it about placement in the store? In every store, is it on the bottom shelf? Is that where it belongs? Or is it in a strike zone shelf as the customers are going through? And is that where it belongs? Understanding as a brand how they go about those decision-making processes along with those kind of key, kind of measuring components And if you understand that and you're proactively working in that, there shouldn't be any surprises in the end.